The one that rings close to me is the myth that people are homeless because they want to be homeless. Nobody wants to be homeless. Everybody wants something to call their own. My name is Vicki Craighead Davis. I'm the Director of Neighbor Services for Urban Ministry Center. I have encountered individuals who are a product of divorce, and based on not wanting to do anything that will legally get them in trouble, have walked away from their homes, and then show up down at the shelter or show up at the Urban Ministry Center just, saying, hey, I'm starting over from scratch. I have who have positive social connections, like they're still in good standings with their mothers, their aunties, their uncles, but refuse to be a burden to their family members because this was their decision. These are real people doing real things and making real decisions.
Well, I mean, we got here with my divorce ended and we got evicted from our house. We had to make moves to come here to Charlotte because I knew that's where I wanted to be. The money just kind of ran out and my backup plan was to do the rooms in the inn. And once that took place, it just started another cycle of just trying to adapt and survive until something else, figured out what the next step was going to be. We didn't plan on being homeless, getting here, but I knew that if I could survive anywhere, I could survive here. Being in transition, just because, homeless is everybody, it has a stigma to it, being homeless. Being in transition is just a more, I guess, a calmer word for the brain to process because the stigma of homelessness is so ugly. We set off from Jacksonville, Florida to come here to Charlotte. What should have been 5.5 hours took us 2.5 days. But because the storm, there was a South Carolina storm we got stuck in. And we made do. We slept in the car, I've always been a survival. It worked. I had a plan, okay? The money just ran out. Every time I thought I was 2 steps ahead, I ended up 5 steps back.
And now they find themselves in a new city with no relatives, but decided that, this is a good space for me. So they end up down at the Urban Ministry, picking up the pieces. Instead of scouring back and running back home, they stay and they pick up the pieces. And it's not easy in the beginning. But if the average person that walks past them, they see, oh, this woman who made bad choices, who is probably on drugs, or who was a sex worker, she's homeless. That's not necessarily true. And the misconceptions are scary almost because you tend to overlook someone who could possibly change your life. I've been in homeless services for a while. There was one incident where I experienced an individual while I was working at the men's shelter of Charlotte, where he lost.
My mom was pretty sick in the hospital. I was living in her house, and when I got home from work, this sheriff was standing there and said she wasn't paying her mortgage. And I had to go. Right then, he showed me a paper. I started looking through the house for things to take out, and he said there wasn't time for that. So I went through a couple of drawers and got, health and birth records, prescriptions. I took my great-grandmother's Bible off the shelf, Mom and Pop's wedding picture, a couple of letters my mom sent me, plus, clothes, my pills. I said, where do I go? And he said, if you don't have a place to go, I guess the men's shelter. Then he tacked a sign on the door. I got to the shelter and they were nice enough, but I checked on my mom and they said she was getting worse. When I got there, they said she probably wasn't going to make it. They let me stay for the night, and thank God she was better the next day. I went back to the shelter and they asked where I'd been. I told them and they said they thought I'd left. When I asked them where my bag was, they said they figured it was abandoned and threw it out. I got really mad and yelled, that was my damn life you threw out. I guess I went crazy, but this lady running the place calmed me down and let me stay. I got my paperwork, pills, and some clothes for work after a while, but everything my family was is gone. Everything. Forever. I still get really sad when I talk about it, especially the Bible.
It saddens me. So I now I now have in my new position here at Urban Ministry Center, what I do is I hold people's belongings. Even though they go into the dumpster, they don't go into the trash. So we have actually dedicated a space for individuals that leave their stuff around campus. Our facilities, they'll take it and put it behind a locked gate in the dumpster area. So if they come back for it, we can still have that. And I kind of created that rule because of what I experienced at the men's shelter. A neighbor that I was working with was having some transportation issues, and she needed to find a unit that was closer to her job. There was no buses running in the evening, so she was putting herself in harm's way.
So I had a minimum wage job, which means I definitely had money problems and things got really tough. My family couldn't really help me because they don't have a whole lot of money. And I didn't have a place to stay. Fortunately, Urban Ministries helped me get a place in South Charlotte, but I still needed a better job. A friend told me about a place that was hiring in Monroe, so I applied and I got it, which is great. But I didn't have a car, so I'd have to take the bus. And the ride between South Charlotte and Monroe took hours, lots and lots of bus changes. It was dark by the time I got home, and I'd have to walk in areas that I wouldn't even walk in today. I was always tired and afraid, and I knew I had to move, but I was trapped. I couldn't move out of my old place without paying a penalty, and there was no question I would pay, but I just needed some time, and I was really worried about being safe. So I went to my landlord, and I was really nervous. I asked him if he could wait until I moved before I could pay him again. And I remember him saying, "Hey, I've been stiffed more than once." But he thought about it, he understood, and he said it was okay. Man, I knew I was so blessed, and that was a huge life lesson. I couldn't tell you how determined I was just to pay him back for doing me such a big favor. When I handed him the money, he wasn't surprised, and I cried. I was so happy I could pay him back and keep my word.
It's those stories that, for me, shows that everybody's not bad. Everybody's not out to beat the system. Nobody brings this on themselves. And to say that the people experiencing homelessness want this, that's a major misconception. Because nobody wants to sleep in the rain. Nobody. If you've ever tried to walk with wet socks inside of your shoes, then you know nobody wants to be homeless.